Hey there, Solo here, and today we have another episode of Last Week at Bungie, where we talk about some of the hot button topics and discussions within the Destiny community as we look to the future of the franchise. Last week, we saw Bungie reaffirm their promise to maintain the greater Destiny community by enforcing the standards of the Code of Conduct on all of their official social platforms. This, of course, stemmed from the heartbreaking amount of stories shared by survivors of the Destiny 2 community about harassment and predatory behavior that they face. I did make a video last week addressing this topic, but the short of it is we need to do better because we are better. And if you can't or won't, then please do us all a favor and remove yourself. Period. In other news, Iron Banner will be coming at Reset, and the gear that we'll be obtaining is less than exciting. Granted, Bungie has introduced two new perks, Iron Grip and Iron Gaze, but so far it looks like the only weapons that will have these new perks will be the Forward Path and the Fool's Remedy. Otherwise, we'll be grinding for weapons and gear that has gone unchanged for the most part and for the better part of the last season when Shadowkeep launched, I guess. Which, at this point, is fine. With this season being the last season before the Beyond Light expansion comes out in the fall, we can only expect Bungie to invest so many resources into the now when we are right on the cusp of a brighter future ahead. Which actually leads me to my next discussion of sunsetting. Now, it seems that a couple of voices in the community have already taken to social media to say how disappointed they are in how sunsetting has taken place on some of their weapons. One instance I've seen been thrown around is in the case of weapons such as Gnawing Hunger. If you had obtained a God roll Gnawing Hunger last season, you now have to try to obtain the same roll this season because the weapon you obtained last season will be obsolete in the fall. And to be fair, the community does have a reason to be mad because this does go against what Bungie said they would do. Now, I believe it was in a previous TWAB or response on social media, but Bungie did state that when weapons would get sunset, they were hoping and looking to reintroduce those weapons back with updated weapon perks and different perk pools to make them better versions of their sunset version. And unfortunately, that's not what is happening. But to play devil's advocate a bit, it was bound to happen. So far, I've only seen this situation happen with Gnawing Hunger and like one or two or maybe even a couple of weapons. I believe this is what will happen with Iron Banner weapons as well for the upcoming Iron Banner. But I honestly think that Bungie's idea was, hey, these weapons are actually really good. So rather than leave them behind, let's get these weapons current so that they will have a longer shelf life and a longer viability for in-game content. And that idea mixed with only choosing a couple of weapons to bring current, and I want to believe that they thought the community wouldn't be as angry having to regrind God rolls for a few weapons, especially considering the newly introduced focus farming method with the prismatic caster in this season. Plus the fact that umbral engrams are dropping like candy. I usually have my postmaster that's just full of them at any given time, so I really want to believe that they just figured, okay, they will have to regrind for these weapons, but it's a little bit more focused, should be easier for them to get that same God roll. And honestly, I think the next season or the fall expansion will introduce a couple of new weapons and systems that will get our minds off of the old gear, and we will hopefully see weapon sunsetting starting to work the way that Bungie intended. But really, I'm just going to chalk this up to the fact that it's the last season of the Shadowkeep era and some missteps were bound to happen. And speaking of missteps, let's talk just a little bit about trials. Now, this season introduced some of the changes that Bungie outlined in a previous TWAB, where they talked about how they were going to address the way that Trials operated in hopes of not only creating a more fair and level playing field that encourages the community to play in the game mode, but actually making sure that players' time investments were actually respected. And I've honestly got to say, I think they missed the mark with this one. Which is unfortunate because on paper, the idea sounded well thought out and sounded, very reasonable. But as we should all know by now, there's a difference between what should happen and what actually will happen. One issue that I have with the new changes is that Bungie has effectively limited the average Trials player to the third win weapon via the weekly bounty, but offers no incentive or aspiration to have them remain in the playlist. This bounty, coupled with the way that tokens now work, where wins 1 through 3 barely reward you with any tokens, also discourages these average players from playing out matches so that they can turn in these tokens for better roles. So to me, all that these changes did was enable aspiring Trials players to hop into the playlist to endure several stompings long enough to finish the bounty for the week and then just leave. Which, as far as I recall, that wasn't supposed to be the solution. But honestly, I feel like that's just how it's going to be until hopefully next season, where we see a change in weapons and gear, where everyone now has to start from the ground and start from zero. The issue with this solution is that the good players in the Trials playlist literally have everything, so their time in Trials is dedicated to grinding out tokens so they can obtain god rolls of whatever weapon that they're trying to get. They're either grinding for wins or seeing how many other teams they can stomp in the playlist. The wealthy or skilled are still in the playlist and reap the rewards, while the people who the changes were supposed to appeal to somehow ended up getting the shorter end of the stick than they had already received before the changes. And honestly, I don't think that there is a solution that can help turn Trials back into a thriving playlist outside of new aspirational rewards, which hopefully again we're going to get in the fall. I wouldn't say that Trials is dead, but don't expect Trials to get any less sweaty than it already is right now, because Trials is not set up for everyone to feel rewarded. So here's to next season. But that is all I have for you in this video. Let me know down in the comments below how you are feeling about sunsetting. Are you angry about having to grind for another god roll, gnawing hunger? How about Trials? Are you liking the changes? As I always say, sharing is caring. Also, I wanted to let everyone know that we are now streaming on Facebook Gaming. We'll be streaming on Tuesdays and Fridays around 8 p.m. Pacific time to coincide with the uploads that will be happening here on YouTube. So I will go ahead and put a link to the page below, and please feel free to follow, like the page, and join me during the streams. It should be fun. That's what I aspire to, but I guess you'll be the judge of that. But also, if you like this video, please go ahead and leave a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the bell. Thank you all, and I hope to see you in the next one. Solo says, so long.